Welcome to another Rick review. Today I wanted to talk about a game that I had really been anticipating since playing the beta a couple months ago, Mortal Shell. Mortal Shell is a Dark Souls clone, and since I like Dark Souls, but usually dislike the games that try to follow in its footsteps, I thought I would give this one a try. I'm probably not the right person to talk about the story in this game. After finishing my playthrough, I still didn't really understand what was going on. I understood that I needed to kill bosses, but that was about it. So I went to YouTube, I watched videos that I'll link in the description for you, and I tried to have the story spoon-fed to me. It still didn't leave a huge impression on me, but I at least understood now what was going on for the most part. At the end of the day, though, the story feels kinda bland and forced just to give you that reason to kill bosses. It has a little bit of depth to it and makes some sense with the world they've created for you, and there was a little bit of a twist at the end, but I thought that part was pretty predictable. I just don't feel like the story was a major focus in this game. It gets a 6 out of 10 for me. Visually, Mortal Shell has a lot of great moments. The character designs aren't anything too wild, but they're good. The weapon designs are a little basic, but they do well enough. There isn't a lot of variety in either of these areas, but what they do have is done well. There isn't a lot of enemy variety either. There's maybe a dozen or so enemy types in the game, but again, the ones that they do have are all very well designed. The settings of this game have some pretty great moments. The swamp at first does a really good job of making you feel lost and dreary, but as they let you spend too much time there, it starts to lose its effect on the player. The other areas are a lot less noticeable. The Frost Boss Arena was pretty good for a boss arena and added to the atmosphere of that fight. But other than that and the swamp, a lot of the areas just felt lifeless and didn't add any sort of feeling. I think the game looks good, but not special. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I really like the sound in this game. Weapons sound right for how they look and feel, armor sounds are tuned to a point. You feel the weight of your character, but they aren't loud enough to get annoying after running around for a while. The enemies sound exactly how you would expect them to based on their looks, and each have a unique sound that can help you identify what enemies are around you. The boss fights really stuck with me more because of their sound design than because of any other element of them, especially the drums in the deep while you're fighting the enslaved Grisha. That fight and its music was half the reason the beta hyped me for this game. There's also the sound of the ghouls in the mist whenever you come back to the swamp after killing a boss. That sound made me very uncomfortable every time I heard it, and it really let you know that something was going on in these mists. Overall, I want to say sound is the strongest point of this game, and it gets a 9 out of 10. On its own, Mortal Shell's gameplay is good, maybe even great, but I can't help but compare it to Dark Souls. The game isn't shy about letting you know it's a Dark Souls clone, it copies a lot of things from that series. In two very specific ways, I think this game innovated the Dark Souls formula brilliantly, hardening and familiarity. Hardening is the primary mechanic they added to this game, and it does get it right. I loved the way that this single element changed up combat in so many situations, but if you didn't feel like using it, you weren't required to. And familiarity was a cool concept to make you want to use consumables, when normally I'm someone who hoards them away for a later that never comes. In so many other areas, though, the game falls short of that Dark Souls standard. The shells are a cool concept story-wise, but they don't offer a whole lot of variety in gameplay. The weapons all fill a niche, and you don't really need more from a mechanical standpoint, but I would still like more just to say that I have options. The upgrade system is shallow and limited. The healing is too dependent on either farming consumables or learning to parry. Some things felt like they changed them just to say they changed them, and I would have rather them stuck with what's been proven to work. Then there's the bosses. Bosses in Mortal Shell are mostly disappointing. I really thought the Enslaved Grisha was going to be the beginning and the base standard. It could only get better from there. That fight drew me in because it was really amazing as an entry-level boss. When I got to Tarsus, I wasn't too disappointed because the fight has a pretty good atmosphere, and every Souls needs a good humanoid fight. I wish the change from Phase 1 to Phase 2 was a bit more dramatic, but other than that, the fight was decent. After that, though, there's only 3 more major bosses, and 2 of them are horrendously underwhelming, from both a design standpoint and from the actual fight itself. I think if I wasn't comparing this game to Dark Souls, the gameplay would get an 8 or a 9 out of 10. In a vacuum, it does everything really well, but I can't help but make that comparison, because they can't help but make that comparison. So my official score is brought down to a 7 out of 10. Of the Dark Souls clones that I've tried, Mortal Shell may be the best one. After averaging my scores together, this game gets a final score of 7.25 out of 10. It has a lot of limitations, and when I discovered it was made by a small team on a tight budget, it didn't surprise me at all. They did really well for what they had, but it lacked in ways that made it really obvious that it wasn't a AAA game on a AAA budget. I really hope the game does well so that this team can try something on a larger scale in the future. Thank you for watching my Rick review on Mortal Shell. If you have any suggestions for games that I should review in the future, please leave a comment below.